Shalom. This is David Golinkin broadcasting from Jerusalem. This Dvar Torah is in memory of Mori Rabbi Prof. David Weiss Halivni, Zichrono Livracha, whom I had the pleasure of studying with in the late 1970s, and it is being recorded shortly after his fourth yortzeit. In Divrei Halev for Parshat Pinhas, pages 307-308, Professor Halivni tries to explain why Pinhas, who saved the Jewish people due to his act of zealotry, was not chosen to lead the Jewish people. On the one hand, the verse says, Lachen emor hineni noten lo et briti shalom, wherefore say, behold, I gave him my covenant of peace. But on the other hand, in Bamidbar 27, when it says, to appoint ish al ha'edah asher yetzeh lifnahem ve'asher yavo lifnehem, appoint someone over the community who shall go out before them and bring them in. Why was Pinhas not chosen? And Rabbi Halivni replies by quoting Rabbeinu Asher, the Rosh, in his Tosafot to Avodah Zarah Mem Amud Aleph, V'alacha Moshe miSinai derech znut befarhesya kanaim pogimbo bishat ma'aseh. And it is a law given to Moses at Sinai in the manner of harlotry in public. Zealots may attack him at the moment of the act. The act of kanaut, the act of the kanai, the zealot, is only acceptable at the time of the overt public sin on the spot, not before and not afterwards. And he goes on to say, the Torah implies that someone who is anxious to carry out such acts may be praiseworthy for the momentary reaction, but is not ready to be a leader. A leader must also have the characteristics of mercy and understanding. God tells us this in the words used to praise Pinhas. God rewards him with Briti Shalom. Zeal for God is praiseworthy, but it must at the same time be motivated by and saturated with Shalom. I would like to talk about a different aspect of zealotry, or fanaticism, and that is when a group of Jews are obsessed by one specific mitzvah or one specific aspect of Judaism at the expense of all other mitzvot. And my text that I would like to begin with is the famous quote from Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk on Dvarim Daled Kaf Gimel, Deuteronomy 4, verse 23. Hisharmu lachem pen tishkechu et brit Hashem Elokechem asher karati machem vasitem lachem pesel tmunat kol asher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha. And what did Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk say about this verse? And you shall make for yourselves an idol which the Lord your God commanded you. Sha'avera achi gdola hi k'she'adam oseh lo pesel utmuna mei asher tzivcha gufa. She'oseh me'amitzvah gufa pesel utmuna. Or as Buber summarized it in his book, The Tales of the Hasidim, the Torah warns us not to make idols of God's commandments. And it seems to me that in our day, we have large groups of Jews who have taken one mitzvah and turned it into Avodah Zarah. And I would like to give three examples. The first is prevalent, especially in the Western world, in the United States, and that is the mitzvah or the rabbinic concept of tikkun olam. And I call these people tikkun olam Jews. Tikkun olam Jews are very worried about poor people in Africa and in South America and in India. They're very worried about the Palestinians. They don't care at all about studying Torah, observing mitzvot, Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael. In other words, they've taken one rabbinic concept of tikkun olam. They've turned that into their entire Judaism. That has become their Avodah Zarah. And they ignore all other aspects of Judaism. And the same thing has happened with the so-called religious Zionists in the state of Israel today. I'm referring to those who vote for the Otzma Yehudit and Tzionut Datit parties. They only care about Eretz Yisrael, or about the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, as interpreted by the Ramban, almost to the expense of all other mitzvot. Thus, for example, many of them hate non-Jews, Some of them are willing to murder non-Jews for no reason whatsoever. In addition, they hate Chiloniyim, secular Jews, conservative and Reform Jews, Jews who are gay, and so on and so forth. The list is very long. According to IDF statistics from the end of 2025, in 2021, there were 446 attacks by settlers in Yehuda v'Shamron against innocent Arabs. In 2023, 1,045 attacks. In 2025, 870 attacks. In other words, they have turned Eretz Yisrael, or the mitzvah of Yeshuv Eretz Yisrael, into a form of Avodah Zarah. And the last example has to do with current events. By coincidence today, my wife is driving up north to visit one set of our children and grandchildren, and she had to leave hours early because the Haredim are blocking roads all over the country to protest the fact that a number of Haredim have been arrested for failing to show up to serve in the IDF, in the Israeli army. They have turned Limud Torah, the study of Torah, into a form of Avodah Zarah, at the expense of everything else. They don't care about the mitzvah of Milchemet Mitzvah, that all Jews are required to serve in the Israeli army according to the Mishnah and Sota and the Rambam. They don't care about Mitzvat Yishuv Haaretz, which includes capturing and sustaining the land. They don't care about Pikuach Nefesh, which obviously since October 7th has been the main thing that the IDF is doing. They don't care about Dina de Malchut Adina, which according to many poskim means that you also have to observe the laws of the state of Israel. They don't care about Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, which includes protecting your neighbor and his property. And they don't care about Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem. So therefore, these are three examples of various groups of Jews who have turned one mitzvah into a form of Avodah Zarah, as described or explained by Menachem Mendel of Kotsk. I hope that as we approach Parshat Pinhas, we will take this lesson to mind and remember that we are obligated to observe Taryag Mitzvot, the entire set of Mitzvot, Ben Adam L'Chaviro and Ben Adam L'Makom. And if we turn one mitzvah into Avodah Zarah, that becomes a form of fanaticism or zealotry, which we need to avoid as much as possible. Shabbat Shalom.